I've been dancing by myself tonight. Close my eyes, I'm fading with the lights. Did you always leave me in the dark? Even you, did you let me stay? Should've never let you break my heart. No, there's nothing left for me to say, 'cause I'm lost in the silence between you and me. Now you're gone, nothing's left over used to be. That's okay, that's alright. Go ahead and live your life. That's okay, that's alright. But don't make me forget. Said sometimes. But don't make me forget. Said I still got a messed up point of view. All I see in everything is you. Oh, did you always keep me in the dark? Even you, did you let me stay? Should've never let you break my heart. No, there's nothing left for me to say, 'cause I'm lost in the silence between you and me. Now you're gone, nothing's left over used to be. That's okay, that's alright. Go ahead and live your life. That's okay, that's alright. But don't make me forget. Said sometimes. But don't make me forget. Said sometimes.
How much time's gotta go by before we walk away and spend these nights alone? This heart of mine wants to move on, but when this house is burning, I can't let it fall. And I try to close my eyes at night, picture us in different light, but I still hold on, stay up and wait for you. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. Cold words hit. It's so close again. I'm bracing for your lightning in the song. I can't outrun the setting sun. How do I take shelter anymore? And I try to close my eyes at night, picture us in different light, but I still hold on, stay up and wait for you. Took our love and I put it on ice. This bed is cold and it don't feel right. Ain't nobody else who loves me like that. You love me like that, no. If you give me space, then I'll give you the sky. Yeah, you got me thinking we could try. Ain't nobody else who love me like that. You love me like that. When I said it's over, thought I really meant that. Now I'm wanting you back, so just hold me closer. Ain't nobody like us. Now I know. So come on and love me like you did before. Tell me I'm worth fighting for. Show me that there's something more. We can do better. Brick by brick we built these walls, but tonight we'll watch them fall. So love me like you did before. We can do better. We can do better.
Heard them say our best days pass us by, and most long for a place that they never find. I'm afraid I wake up when I die, and it is too late to climb any mountain. Time is of the essence, the blood running through our core. It's best to not feel sorry when it's over. I will be the great.
When you walk through the door, there is something about you. I picture us in cheap motel rooms. When you walk through the door, I realize that I know you. Prom king boy, oh, I have been one. Watch me step over your wire. I have my secrets, you will be one. Sometimes I like play with fire. You don't know yet, I already won. I know how to dance on your minefield, how to talk with my lips sealed. I get kicks out of cheap thrills. I know how to dance on your minefield. like before. You're circling closer around me. Catch me, boy, I'm ready to fall. I know how to deal with flyers. You think you scare me, but you don't. Still go on and keep on trying. I'm sure we have a similar goal. I know how to dance on your mind, feel how to talk with my lips sealed. I get kicks out of cheap thrills. I know how to dance on your mind, feel how to talk with my lips sealed. I get kicks out of cheap thrills. So why is it so hard to let you go? Let you go. So why is it so hard to let you go? Let you go. So why is it so hard to let you go? Let you go. Let you go. So why is it so hard to let you go? So why is it so hard to let you go? Let you go. Let you go. Thought you'd call, but you didn't, so I'm sitting here. Thought I heard my phone ring, but it disappeared. Guess I'm just losing my mind again. I tell myself to breathe in, but the darkness hung its teeth in, and its mind has got me thinking. Sick and tired of feeling. So sick and tired of dreaming. 'Cause I always wake up. Sick and tired of believing that this pain will ever end. Oh, I've had enough. I've had enough. 'Cause it always comes back again. And I'm not even gonna pretend that it's okay. Constantly putting bad thoughts on replay. I really don't like living life this way, but I know that these things will never change. Tell myself to breathe in, but the darkness sun gets seeping in, and its madness got me thinking. So sick and tired of dreaming. 'Cause I always wake up. Sick and tired of believing that this pain will never end. Oh, I've had enough. I've had enough. Here we go again. You're right here and you're right here. Here we go again. I'm losing all
I don't know if I'm changing over. In the moonlight, I can't kill this feeling sober. So I start to come alive. I don't know what starts to.
Don't be cautious, don't be kind. You committed, I'm your crime. Push my button anytime. You got your finger on the trigger, but your trigger finger's mine. Silver dollar, golden flame. Dirty water, poison rain. Perfect murder, take your aim. I don't belong to anyone, but everybody knows my name. By the way, you've been uninvited, 'cause all you say are all the same things I did. Copycat, tryna cut my manner. Watch your back when you can't watch mine. Copycat, tryna cut my glamour. Why so sad when you can't have mine? Call me calloused, call me cold. You're italic, I'm in bold. Call me cocky, watch your tone. You better love me, 'cause you're just a clown. By the way, you've been uninvited, 'cause all you say are all the same things I did. Copycat, tryna cut my manner. Watch your back when you can't watch mine. Copycat, tryna cut my glamour. Why so sad when you can't have to be the one that told you so. You just crossed the line. You ran out of time. I'm so sorry, now you know. Sorry, I'm the one that told you so. Sorry, sorry, I'm sorry, sorry. Psych. By the way, you've been uninvited, 'cause all you say are all the same things I did. Copycat trying to cut my manner. Watch your back when you can't watch mine. Copycat trying to cut my glamour. We're so sad, but you can't have mine. Did my invitations disappear? What I put my heart on every cursive letter. Tell me why the hell no one is here. Tell me what to do to make it all feel better. Maybe it's a cruel joke on me. Whatever, whatever. Just means there's way more cake for me. Forever, forever. It's my party and I'm kinda want to, kinda want to. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? It's my party and I'm kinda want to, kinda want to. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? Maybe if I knew I love him well, I wouldn't have been trapped inside this hell that holds me. Maybe if I casted out a spell, but told them declarations were in pastel ribbons. Maybe it's a cruel joke on me. Whatever, whatever. Just means there's way more cake for me. Forever, forever. It's my party and I'm kinda want to, kinda want to. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? It's my party and I'm kinda want to, kinda want to. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? I'm laughing, I'm crying, it feels like I'm dying. I'm laughing, I'm crying, it feels like I'm dying. I'm laughing, I'm crying, it feels like I'm dying. I'm dying, I'm dying. It's my party and I'm crying for one too, for one too. It's my party and I'm crying for one too. It's my party and I'm crying for one too, crying for one too. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? It's my party and I'm crying for one too, crying for one too. How come till the candles burn down this place? How come till my pity parties in flames? It's my party, it's my party, it's my party, it's my party, it's my party and I'm crying for one too, crying for one too. Looking at me through your window, boy, you had your eye out for a little. I cut you at the peak, you're doing it. You've reached the end, you are the winner. Rolling down your tinted window, driving next to me real slow. He said, let me take you for a joyride. I've got some candy for you inside. Running through the parking lot, he chased me and he wouldn't stop. Tag, you're in. Tag, tag, you're in. Grabbed my hand, pushed me down, took the words right out my mouth. Tag, you're in. Tag, tag, you're in. Give me, give me, hit underground. Give me, looking to myself, saying tag, you're in. Tag, tag, you're in. He's saying tag. she squeals, don't let her go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, your mother said to pick the very best girl, and I am. Running through the parking lot, you chase me and you win, stop and tag. You're in, tag, tag, you're in. Grab my hand, push me down, hook the words right on my mouth, tag. You're in, tag, tag, you're in. Running through the parking lot, you chase me and you win, stop, tag. You're in, tag, you're in. Grab my hand, push me down, take the words right out my mouth, tag. You're in, tag, tag, you're in. My friends don't walk, they run. Skinny dipping rabbit holes for fun. Popping balloons with guns. Getting high off helium. We paint white roses red. Each shade from a different person said this dream is a killer. Getting drunk with a blue caterpillar. I'm peeling the skin off my face, 'cause I really hate being safe. The normals, they make me afraid. The crazies, they make me feel sane. I'm nuts, baby, I'm mad. The craziest run that you've ever had. You think I'm psycho, you think I'm gone. Tell the psychiatrist something is wrong. Over the bend, entirely bonkers. You like me best when I'm off my rocker. Tell you a secret, I'm not alarmed. So what if I'm crazy? The best people are. All the best people are crazy. All the best people are. Where is my prescription? Doctor, doctor, please listen. My brain is scattered. You can be Alice, I'll be the Mad Hatter. I'm peeling the skin off my face, 'cause I really hate being safe. The normals, they make me afraid. The crazies, they make me feel sane. I'm nuts, baby, I'm mad. The craziest run that you've ever had. You think I'm psycho, you think I'm gone. Tell the psychiatrist something is wrong. Over the bend, entirely bonkers. You like me best when I'm off my rocker. Tell you a secret, I'm not alarmed. So what if I'm crazy? The best people are. You think I'm crazy, you think I'm gone. So what if I'm crazy? All the best people are. And I think you're crazy too. I know you're gone. It's probably the reason that we get along. Nuts, baby, I'm mad. The craziest run that you've ever had. You think I'm psycho, you think I'm gone. Tell the psychiatrist something is wrong. Over the bend, entirely bonkers. You like me best when I'm off my rocker. Tell you a secret, I'm not alarmed. So what if I'm crazy? The best people are. All the best people are crazy. All the best people are. All the best people are crazy. All the best people are.
Till death do us part, but we're already past that phase. This is a brand new start, and I think I deserve some praise for the way that I am. Despite having overdosed and ending up comatose, I don't give a damn. I've let my emotions go, fuck being a sober hoe. This is the mantra, this is my life. You're playing with now till the end of the night. Surrounded by fire, the passion ignites. A hit at that heaven and hell, I'm addicted to the madness. This hotel is my Atlantis. We're forever gonna have a fucking reason to sin. Let me leave my soul to burn and I'll be breathing it in. I'm addicted to the feeling, getting higher than the ceiling. And we're never gonna want this fucking feeling to end. Just concede and give in to your inner demons again.
Yeah, you fell in love, but you fell deeper in this pit. While death rains from above, so count your blessings, cause this is it. You're not letting it go. So what if I misbehave? It's what everybody craves. You already know. So come if you're feeling brave and fancy yourself a mate. You want it, I got it. See what you like. We could have it all by the end of the night. Your money and power, my sinful delight. A hit of the heaven and hell at however high.
I'm addicted to the madness. This hotel is my Atlantis. We're forever gonna have a fucking reason to sin.
Let me leave my soul to burn and I'll be breathing it in.
I'm addicted to the feeling, getting higher than the ceiling. And we're never gonna want this fucking feeling to end. Just concede and give in to your inner demons again. Demons again. I'm addicted to the feeling, getting higher than the ceiling. And we're never gonna want this fucking feeling to end. Just concede and give in to your inner demons again. I'm addicted to the feeling, getting higher than the ceiling. And we're never gonna want this fucking feeling to end. Just concede and give in to your inner demons again. I'm addicted to the sorrow when the buzz ends by tomorrow. There's another rush of poison flowing into my veins, giving me a dose of pleasure that resides by the pain. I'm addicted, I'm dependent, looking awesome, feeling helpless. And I know I'm raising Cain by every highway in hell. Maybe things won't be so terrible inside this hotel.
The teacher giving his eyes to a student.
the prom queen, teenage daydream, just another dressed up heartbreak. God save the prom queen, only 18, turned her tears to diamonds in her crown. She's the first in line at the party, she's the first in line at the club, and she's got that body, always gotta flaunt it, everybody's looking up. When she walks by you wanna be her, and your boyfriend pretends not to see her, cause she's got that fire, doesn't even try, her booty has its own zip code. All the peasants bow down. God save the prom queen, teenage daydream, just another dress up heartbreak. God save the prom queen, only 18, turned her tears to diamonds in her crown. Take a look at the future, who knows what's ahead? There's a house on a hill with an indoor pool and a millionaire in her bed. And the years go by and she still dreams she's the hottest girl in town. And the makeup's stronger, gotta wear it longer just to keep a man around. God save the prom queen, teenage daydream, just another dress up heartbreak. God save the prom queen, only 18, turned her tears to diamonds in her crown. And she lives her dreams through the magazines, and her daddy's gone, and she needs someone, and she's got the looks and the boys on hooks, but she traded all for a heart that's whole. God save the prom queen. God save the prom God save the prom queen. Teenage daydream. God save the prom queen. She's turned her tears to diamonds in her crown.
I don't like your little games. Don't like your tilted stage. The role you made me play of the fool. No, I don't like you. I don't like your perfect crime. How you laugh when you lie. You said the gun was mine. Isn't cool. No, I don't like you. But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time. Honey, I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time. I've got a list of names and yours is in red underlined.
twice. Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me. Ooh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. I don't like your kingdom keys. They once belonged to me. You asked me for a place to sleep, locked me out, and threw a feast. The world moves on another day, another drama, but not for me, not for me. All I think about is karma. And then the world moves on, but one thing's for sure. Maybe I got mine, but you'll all get yours. But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time. I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time. I've got a list of names and yours is in red underlined. I check it once, then I check it twice. Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams. I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me.
Thank you. Thank you, Llama.
Actress starring in your bad dreams. I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams. I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams. I'm sorry, the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Why? Oh, 'cause she's dead. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do.
horse on a carousel. We go, will I catch up to love? I can never tell. I know, chasing after you is like a fairy tale. But I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. Come one, come all. You must be this tall to ride this ride at the carnival. Oh, come take my hand and run through playland. So high to hide at the carnival. And it's all fun and games till somebody falls in love. But you already bought a ticket and there's no turning back now. Round and round like a horse on a carousel. We go, will I catch up to love? I can never tell. I know, chasing after you is like a fairy tale. But I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. This horse is too slow. We're always this close. Almost, almost. We're a freak show. Right when I'm near. It's like you disappear. Where do you go? It's not a video or a freak show. And it's all fun and games till somebody falls in love. But you already bought a ticket and there's no turning back now. Round and round like a horse on a carousel. We go, will I catch up to love? I can never tell. I know, chasing after you is like a fairy tale. But I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. Why did you steal my cotton candy heart? You threw it in this damn coin slot. And now I'm stuck. Riding. Round and round like a horse on a carousel. We go, will I catch up to love? I can never tell. I know, chasing after you is like a fairy tale. But I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. You seem to replace your brain with your heart. You take things so hard and then you fall apart. You try to explain, but before you can start, those crybaby tears come out of the dark. Someone's turning the handle to the voices in your eyes. You pour it out where everyone can see. Your heart's too big for your body. That's why you won't fit inside. You pour it out where everyone can see. They call you cry baby, but you don't fucking care. Cry baby, so you laugh through your tears. Cry baby, 'cause you don't fucking care. Tears fall to the floor. You just let them drop. You just let them drop.
Oh, here's to you.
You're all on your own and you lost all your friends. You told yourself that it's not you, it's them. You're one of a kind and no one understands. But those crybaby tears keep coming back again. Someone's turning the handle to the voices in your eyes. You pour it out where everyone can see. Your heart's too big for your body. Call me cry baby, but I don't fucking care. Cry baby, I laugh through my tears. Cry baby, 'cause I don't fucking care. Tears fall to the ground, I just let them drown. Cry baby, I just let them drown. Cry baby, you just let them drown. Cry baby, I just let them drown. Cry baby, you just let them Hell raising, I'm ready for the worst. So frightening, face whitening, fear that you can't reverse. My phone has no signal, it's making my skin crawl. The silence is so loud. The lights spark and flicker with monsters much bigger than I can control now. Welcome to the panic room, where all your darkest fears are gonna come for you, come for you. Welcome to the panic room. You'll know I wasn't joking when you see them too, see them too. Welcome to the panic room. Still waiting, hands shaking. Maybe the coast will clear. But these voices, these strange noises, they followed me in here. My phone has no signal, it's making my skin crawl. The silence is so loud. The lights spark and flicker with monsters much bigger than I can control now. Welcome to the panic room, where all your darkest fears are gonna come for you, come for you. Welcome to the panic room. You'll know I wasn't joking when you see them too, see them too. Welcome to the panic room. There's no crying wolves now, 'cause the truth has settled in. truth is settled in, hiding under goose down for your nightmare to begin. Welcome to the playground, where all your darkest fears are gonna come for you, come for you. Welcome to the playground. You'll know I wasn't joking when you see them too, see them too. Hell raising, hell raising. I'm ready for the worst.
Your skin is warm like an oven. Your kiss is sugary sweet. Your fingers feel like cotton when you put your arms around me. I feel like I'm just missing something whenever you leave. We've got all the ingredients except you loving me. And respectfully, I'm not a piece of cake for you to just discard while you walk away with the frosting on my heart. So I'm taking back what's mine. You miss the slice of heaven that I gave to you last night. You smell just like vanilla. You taste like buttercream. You're filling up my senses with empty calories. I feel like I'm just missing something whenever you leave. We've got all the ingredients except you needing me. So respectfully, I'm not a piece of cake for you to just discard while you
across the room. Promise you your girl's too good to be true. With paper white teeth and perfect bodies, wish I didn't care. I know that beauty's not my life, but it feels like that blade is on my back, and I can't let it go. Comparison is killing me slowly. I think too much. Tell kids who don't know me. I'm so sick of myself. Rather be than be anyone else. But just see everyone getting all the things I want. I'm happy for them, but then again I'm not. Just cool vintage clothes and vacation photos, I can't stand it. Oh God, I sound crazy. That win is not my loss. I know it's true, but I can't help getting caught up in a comparison is killing me slowly. I think too much. Now kids who don't know me. I'm so sick of myself.
You belong here with us. Thanks, but no thanks.
Come live with us in the palace. There's a room waiting for you. Come on, just let us adore you. Come live with us in the palace. There's a room waiting for you. Come on, just let us adore you. Yes, we know that you're not her, but you were her. You know what it meant to love her. You remind us so much of her.
They're not exactly easy to get along with.
Today, right here, right now, I'll love again. I've already found someone.
Just let us adore you. Come
Excuse
live
me.
with us in the palace. There's a room waiting for
I'll
you.
love again. I've already found someone.
Just let us adore you.
Yes, I know that you're not hurt, and I was hurt. You know what it meant to love her, and you remind me so much of her.
Today, right here, right now, we'll love again. We've already found someone.
Dwarf goblins. I mean, she literally looks like a goblin. I'm just telling you, and acts like a goblin.
Just because you claim to think something is true does not make it true.
The jury awards almost $50 million in damages against Alex Jones and his companies for defaming the parents of children killed in the Sandy Hook massacre. After years of being targeted by Alex Jones, the parents finally had their chance to address Jones to his face in court, and things did not go well for Jones. Just how bad was it? So bad that former prosecutor Mitchell Epner said, "In over 25 years as a trial lawyer, I have never seen a witness do more damage to himself on the stand than Alex Jones, and that includes a case where I was AUSA, where I got a defendant to admit that he was guilty of the crime charged in the indictment." It was so bad that also former prosecutor Ken White said, "It was like an action movie where it's not enough that the bad guy gets shot or stabbed at the end, he's got to be like decapitated and exploded and impaled at the same time." But let's start at the beginning. Why was Alex Jones on trial? In 2012, a lone gunman murdered 6 adults and 20 children at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. Alex Jones and his associate Alan Schroyer and Wolfgang Helbig said that the event was a hoax that did not happen.
The whole thing is a giant hoax.
The Jones gang accused the bereaved family members of being, quote, crisis actors.
And it just shows how bold they are, that they clearly used actors.
And Jones and his correspondents repeated those claims on InfoWars broadcast.
Okay, so just another question that people are now going to be asking about Sandy Hook.
Alex Jones's fans harassed the parents online and at their homes, and after several years of this, some of the Sandy Hook families sued Jones for defamation in Connecticut and Texas. During his deposition in one of the other Sandy Hook cases, lawyers played clips of Jones mocking the parents and calling their tears bad acting.
The only problem is I've watched a lot of soap operas, and I've seen actors before. And I know when I'm watching a movie, I know when I'm watching something real.
And in response to those clips, Jones admitted under oath that he knew his statements were false. After his deposition, Jones and InfoWars denied having emails, text messages, and other material about the Sandy Hook claims. Jones and his lawyers then ignored court orders to produce documents in Texas and Connecticut. And spoiler alert, during the damages trial, we found out that they lied about having this material when one of his lawyers accidentally sent Jones's entire cell phone and a whole bunch of other documents to opposing counsel.
Your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years.
And Jones has a whole pattern of disregarding discovery obligations in other cases as well. And some people have claimed that Jones has gotten railroaded by having liability conceded by default, and that Jones's constitutional rights have been infringed. That is not the case here. It was a strategic choice by Jones and his attorney to not turn documents over, all the while claiming that they never possessed relevant documents and that those documents didn't exist. We know now that that is not the case, that it was a strategic choice to hold those documents back, never turn them over, and then face the repercussions in court, which is what they basically have done, and why liability was conceded.
But I'm not going to seal the entire quantity of information without knowing what's in it when the rules weren't followed properly.
And taking all of that into consideration, the judges in all 10 Sandy Hook cases entered default judgments against Jones and his companies. A default judgment happens when the defendant in a civil case fails to do something such as ignoring a court summons, missing a court date, or disregarding the judge's direct orders. And if this occurs, a court may rule in favor of the plaintiff by default. And this is very rare. A default judgment is the most serious sanction a judge can impose during a civil trial. Judges do not enter default judgments very often. But if you want to learn more about why the default judgments were entered against Jones, check out my video on the topic. I have an entire video on the pre-damages portion of this trial. But this particular case that we're talking about today is the first of 3 upcoming trials that will decide how much money Jones and his companies must pay in damages. It was filed by Neil Heslin and Scarlett Lewis, who are the parents of 6-year-old Jesse Lewis, who was killed at Sandy. And since the default judgments were issued, Jones couldn't contest liability. The trial was only about how much Jones must pay, and the plaintiff sought $150 million in compensatory and punitive damages. So what did the plaintiff say during trial? Well, Neil Heslin was the first plaintiff to testify.
I can't even describe the last 9.5 years of the living hell that I and others have had to endure because of the negligence and the recklessness of Alex Jones.
He and Lewis said that strangers have confronted them everywhere, including at their homes. Heslin's house and car have been shot by people yelling out Alex Jones.
Somebody drove by my home shouting out the window Alex Jones, and it sounded like gunfire coming from the vehicle.
Heslin gave heart-wrenching testimony about holding his son and seeing that he had a bullet hole through his head. Owen Schroyer went on Jones's program and said that Heslin lied about holding his son's body.
I think it's time for you to explain this contradiction in the narrative.
And this is apparently what prompted Heslin and Lewis to fight back.
Alex started this fight, and I'll finish this fight.
Now, Jones wasn't in court to hear Heslin's testimony about Jesse. It's not necessary to show up to court, but usually you do want to do that. Instead, while Heslin testified, Jones did a live show where he called Heslin slow and autistic and accused him of being manipulated by lawyers.
But I'll just say, because I gotta be honest, he's slow, okay?
This was not a good strategy because this clip was then played in court for the jury just a few days later.
I mean, I think Heslin acts like somebody on the spectrum.
It supported one of the plaintiff's key claims that Jones has spent years ridiculing the Sandy Hook parents and that he can't control himself or his employees who continue to harass the families. Now, after court, Heslin and Jones had a confrontation where Jones again called Heslin a slow person who's being manipulated by lawyers. Jones also ripped the judge on his InfoWars program.
And they're all caricatures of what you would imagine in some alternate universe of dwarf goblins. It's demonic. They all act demonically possessed. The judge, the lawyers.
Now, part of our job as lawyers is client control. We tell our clients not to talk about their cases in public. Don't post to Facebook. Don't share things in the media. Don't talk with friends and family. But ultimately, though, it's up to the client to demonstrate some self-control.
Judge Goblin here in Austin, I mean, she literally looks like a goblin, I'm just telling you, and acts like a goblin.
Even the greatest lawyers in history would probably be powerless to stop Jones from, being himself. And then there was the testimony of plaintiff Scarlett Lewis. Jones was again not in court for the first half of Scarlett Lewis's testimony. When he finally arrived, he was accompanied by a team of bodyguards. Lewis addressed her testimony directly to Jones while he sat at the defense table.
I am a mother, first and foremost, and I know that you're a father. And my son existed. I know you believe me. And yet you're gonna leave this courthouse and you're gonna say it again on your show.
At one point, Lewis directly asked Jones,
"You think I'm an actress?"
No, I don't think you're an
No, you can't talk right now.
Sorry.
Now, Lewis told Jones that he makes claims about the massacre that he knows are lies.
But when you say those things, there's a fringe of society that believe you, that are actually dangerous.
And Lewis emphasized the deep trauma that she has because of Jones and his followers.
It seems so incredible to me that we have to do this. That we have to implore you, not just implore you, punish you, to get you to stop lying.
A forensic psychologist who met Heslin and Lewis said both suffer from a form of post-traumatic stress disorder that comes from constant trauma. Jones's lawyer, Reynald, had a tough time handling these witnesses on cross-examination because it would be incredibly hard to cross-examine these witnesses. At one point, he suggested that it would be more healing for Lewis and Heslin to sit down and talk through their trauma with Alex Jones than it would to file a lawsuit. On cross-examination, Jones's lawyer grilled Lewis about her finances, noting her book contract and speaking engagements.
Can you tell the members of the jury how much is this suggested honorarium for your speaking engagement?
It may be $5,000.
Would 10 be more accurate?
It could be 10.
And he said that she makes more than enough to pay for her own therapy. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this questioning probably did not go over particularly well with the jury. And then there's this testimony of Alex Jones himself. When he took the stand, he told plaintiffs that he's always wanted to apologize.
That I never intentionally tried to hurt you. I never even said your name until this case came to court. I didn't even know who you were until a couple years ago when all this started up. The internet had a lot of questions. I had questions.
Jones argued that he made a few inquiries about whether Sandy Hook was a false flag operation, and then the mainstream media reported on what he said and turned everything into a circus. The media, Jones said, created an atmosphere where nobody knew what the facts were, so there was no real way for him to get it right. Jones and his lawyer argued that the Sandy Hook parents were victimized 4 times, by the shooter, by truthers, by politicians, and by everyone else who took their grief and weaponized it. In other words, it wasn't his fault. Now, on cross-examination, Jones also admitted that he basically called every major event of the last decade a false flag incident engineered by the government. Now, the judge was not pleased by any of this. You've probably seen the incendiary clips of the judge telling Jones to stop lying under oath.
You're already under oath to tell the truth. You've already violated that oath twice today.
Now, the judge admonished Jones for a number of different things. The first was telling the jury that he was bankrupt. Jones repeatedly testified that he only makes money selling prepackaged prepper food for like an apocalypse. Everything else was money losing, he claimed. But plaintiffs had already shown that InfoWars was making a lot of money, as much as $800,000 a day during certain events. And one of his employees testified that the company makes about $50 million annually.
That's what the document says.
Though faced with 3 upcoming trials, Jones and his companies have started bankruptcy proceedings. Now, when a company files for Chapter 11 protection, it tends to stay the other legal proceedings. Jones has many LLCs, but the biggest company is Free Speech Systems. Free Speech Systems filed for bankruptcy in Texas, so Jones's lawyer moved to stay the Connecticut proceedings, which is a different case. But this was the second delay in the Connecticut case because of bankruptcy maneuvers. Back in April, InfoWars and 2 of its subsidiaries, InfoWars Health LLC and Prison Planet LLC, also filed for bankruptcy protection. Now, these entities were removed as named defendants so that the damages proceedings could move forward. Now, Free Speech Systems listed $14.3 million in assets, including over $1 million in cash and almost $1.6 million in property and equipment. However, the petition claimed the company had $79 million in liabilities, including a $54 million debt owed to something called PQPR Holdings. Now, who owns PQPR Holdings? Well, it's Carol Jones and David Jones, also known as Alex Jones's mom and dad. Now, the Sandy Hook plaintiffs believe the bankruptcy proceedings are a sham. Heslin, Posner, and 2 other Sandy Hook families filed separate lawsuits accusing Jones of hiding millions of dollars in assets. The plaintiff said the $54 million debt was dubious since PQPR is a Nevada-registered company that is owned by shell entities owned by Jones's kids and parents. There's substantial evidence of fraudulent transfers, and it's not even clear that the bankruptcy court would discharge the Sandy Hook judgments anyway. So while Jones may delay, it's likely to be a Pyrrhic victory. And going back to what Jones was admonished for during the trial, Jones told the jury that he had complied with the court's discovery orders, which is absolutely false. Now, during discovery, plaintiffs asked for a number of different things, but they specifically asked Jones to identify the number of videos he produced about Sandy Hook. Jones and his co-defendants refused to produce this material, which is one of the reasons for the default judgment. And the plaintiffs' lawyers generally had a pretty easy time showing that Alex Jones was lying about the stuff that was actually produced.
Mr. Reynolds had told the jury that there was 29 minutes total of InfoWars videos. He played 51 minutes in a single video, so we know that's not true. He has routinely, every single day of this trial, broken rules that a first-year lawyer knows. He has routinely placed inadmissible material in front of the jury. It is from our perspective at this table that Mr. Reynolds is actively trying for a mistrial.
And the judge told Alex Jones's lawyer to stop many different times.
I am very upset that you have tried to imply to the jury that we know how many videos about Sandy Hook were released by your clients, when we don't, because they refused to respond to discovery. So I do not want you to do that again, and I don't want you to argue with me about it. That is the rule of this case. That's it. They didn't respond. We don't know. We've had multiple conversations about how I know you know what the rules are, and you know what the rules are, but you've chosen not to follow them on occasion.
And despite the judge's very clear instructions on the number of videos, Reynolds interrupted the judge to argue.
The number of videos, their length, this is evidence that is being adduced in the courtroom.
But what you said was not, we've shown the jury 29 minutes of clips where the word Sandy Hook appears or anything like that. It was, they released in total 29 minutes. That is not true.
But the judge made it extraordinarily clear to Alex Jones what he could and could not do.
You may not say to this jury that you complied with discovery. That is not true. You may not say it again. You may not tell this jury that you are bankrupt. That is also not true. You're already under oath to tell the truth. You've already violated that oath twice today in just those 2 examples. It seems absurd to instruct you again that you must tell the truth while you testify, yet here I am. You must tell the truth while you testify. This is not your show. You need to slow down and not take what you see as opportunities to further the message you're wanting to further, and instead only answer the specific and exact question you have been asked.
Now, what makes all of these exchanges particularly remarkable is that Jones's lawyer, Reynal, probably knew that there was a ticking time bomb that disproved Jones's claims about discovery. A ticking time bomb was that Jones's lawyer had accidentally sent 300 gigabytes of unredacted information directly to plaintiff's counsel, and that included Jones's entire cell phone backup. And sure enough, on cross-examination, plaintiff's lawyer Bankston reminded Jones that he claimed to have searched for messages related to Sandy Hook on his phone. Jones said yes, that he did the search, but found nothing.
So you did get my text messages, and it said you didn't. Nice trick.
And that led to the Perry Mason moment, where Bankston absolutely skewered Jones on cross-examination by pointing out that these documents did exist in the form of text messages and emails that mentioned Sandy Hook. And the reason that Bankston knew that they existed is because Jones's lawyer accidentally sent him the entire cell phone.
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment.
Yeah, that's quite the exchange. And in fact, I have an entire video covering both this Perry Mason moment and the equally interesting hearing that was held the next day, where the defense counsel moved for mistrial. And that also did not go well for Alex Jones. But since liability was already conceded, it didn't really take the jury very long to award damages to the plaintiffs. The jury found that Alex Jones should pay $4.1 million in compensatory damages for repeatedly claiming the school shooting was a hoax. Now, a court awards compensatory damages to put the plaintiff in the situation that they would have been had the harm not occurred. Now, compensatory damages include both economic and non-economic damages, such as medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, mental impairment, and emotional distress. Heslin and Lewis were seeking $150 million from Jones, but the jury's verdict fell pretty far short of that mark. Jones's lawyer, Reynal, asked jurors to award a total of $8, $1 for each of the 8 harms the defendants inflicted on Heslin and Lewis. Of course, he couldn't ask for nothing because liability was conceded. Now, the jury's verdict was not unanimous. 2 of the jurors did not sign the form. In Texas, a civil jury verdict does not have to be unanimous. But that takes us to the punitive damages, or as Texas calls them, exemplary damages. Now, a court will award exemplary damages in Texas to punish the wrongdoer for their particularly bad behavior. Exemplary damages are also meant to deter people who might act like the defendant in the future. So in other words, Texas exemplary damages are meant to penalize the defendant for their behavior and to warn others not to do the same thing. And under section 41.003 of the Texas Code of Practice and Remedies, exemplary damages are awarded to a plaintiff if they prove with clear and convincing evidence that their harm resulted from fraud, malice, or gross negligence. But exemplary damages may only be awarded if the decision is unanimous. This, in combination with the clear and convincing evidence standard, makes it difficult to recover exemplary damages in personal injury cases in Texas. But there's another wrinkle, because in Texas, there's a statutory cap on punitive damages in personal injury cases. An award of exemplary damages may not exceed an amount equal to the greater of 2 times the economic damages plus an amount equal to any non-economic damages found by the jury not to exceed $750,000 or $200,000. And another subsection prohibits telling the jury about this particular cap. Now, the reason the juries are not instructed is that it might influence their thinking. They might shift punitive damages into the compensatory damages. So it's entirely possible that the jury can come up with a much bigger amount than the statute allows. And if a jury returns an award that is higher than the statutory cap, then the judge just simply reduces the amount. And in closing arguments, the plaintiff's attorney argued that this was the jury's ability to send a message to, quote, stop Alex Jones, stop the monetization of misinformation of lies. The defense argued that Jones had only spent 18 hours and 43 minutes talking about Sandy Hook, and that they only made about $14,000 per hour during the coverage, and that should form the basis of the award. And following closing arguments, the jury returned a verdict of $45 million in punitive damages. But given the statutory limits that we just talked about, it's likely that the punitive damages award is likely to get chopped down to well less than $1 million. But that raises the question, what's next for Alex Jones? Well, the answer is more trials. On September 14th, the Posner and De La Rosa plaintiffs will face Jones in a Texas courtroom. In addition, Jones may find himself in deeper trouble with the January 6th committee, which wants to see all of the information that was on his cell phone, which was turned over to the plaintiff's attorneys. Jones took the Fifth Amendment 100 times during his testimony to the January 6th committee, and in this trial, Judge Gamble said she would not enter an order stopping Bankston, the plaintiff's attorney, from giving the material to the January 6th committee.
I mean, I don't know that you get to stop them anyway.
Additionally, Jones's lawyers are in hot water. Reynal is facing potential discipline by the Connecticut bar. On the same day that the Texas jury handed down the verdict, a judge ordered Reynal and Jones's lawyer Norm Pattis to attend a hearing about whether they should be referred to disciplinary authorities or sanctioned by the court directly for releasing confidential medical records in violation of state and federal law and contra the court's protective order. And although Jones told the jury that any verdict over $2 million will sink us, after the verdict, Jones's lawyer assured reporters that the verdict meant Jones would continue to be on the air, presumably profitably for the foreseeable future. Now, the other thing that could be next for Alex Jones is a perjury conviction. Many people have pointed out that it sure seems like Jones obviously lied on the stand, aka perjury. And to find out about the law of perjury and Jones's chances of conviction, you'll have to head over to today's sponsor, Nebula and CuriosityStream. On Nebula, my videos always come out early with 0 ads, and I release exclusive content all the time, like this entire video on the implications of Jones's testimony and whether it rises to perjury, as well as exclusive videos like things people misunderstand about the Constitution, why NFTs are bad for creators, and my first full-length documentary, Bad Law Words Good, and tons more, all exclusive to Nebula. And all of this exclusive content is available only on Nebula, which you can get for free with CuriosityStream. Nebula is creator-owned and creator-operated, and there's new exclusive content released multiple times every single day. Oh, and by the way, we've been developing Nebula like crazy. It now has apps for iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, and Android TV, and it was recently nominated for its first Streamy Award. My fellow creators and I really care about Nebula, and we're thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream because they are the go-to source for the best documentaries and long-form educational content on the internet. And they even have an entire section devoted to unsolved mysteries and crime. So if you like my videos, you will love the thousands of titles on CuriosityStream. Now, the best way to get access to Nebula and all of its incredible content is through the amazing CuriosityStream Nebula bundle deal with its current sales price of less than $15 per year to get access to both sites. And to be clear, that Nebula subscription is not a trial, it's free for as long as you are a CuriosityStream member. There just isn't a better deal in streaming where you get 2 great streaming sites with content that you'll actually watch and enjoy for less than $15 per year at its current sales price. But what's more is signing up will actually help countless independent educational creators beyond just Legal Eagle. So sign up now by clicking on this button that's here on screen right now, or you can click on the link that's down below in the description. It's a great way to support educational content and get tons of exclusive content that you'll love. So click right now. And after you do that, click on this playlist over here for more Legal Eagle videos. So click here, or I'll see you in court. Here's a legal pro tip. If you admit to opposing counsel that he's having a Perry Mason moment while cross-examining you,
This is your Perry Mason moment.
well, you're probably screwed. And that is exactly what happened to Alex Jones. Alex Jones got so skewered on cross-examination that the writers of Law & Order said it was too unrealistic for the show. Now, to say that this defamation trial by some of the Sandy Hook families against Alex Jones is going poorly for Jones is quite the understatement. Now, to recall how we got here, Jones is already in hot water. This trial is only over damages, how much Jones is going to have to pay these families, because he and his lawyers engaged in so many discovery abuses that the judge sanctioned him, gave him effectively terminating sanctions where he had to concede liability. Jones lost the case and the Sandy Hook plaintiffs won by default. That's how abusive they were during discovery. But that takes us to the viral video that you might have seen clips of where the plaintiff's attorney, Mark Bankston, absolutely destroys Alex Jones on cross after just setting him up for a gigantic fall. So let's take a look.
One of the things you talked about yesterday is you complied with discovery, right? You said that
about.
I mean, Jones did not actually comply with discovery, but I guess now they're saying after all the sanctions, they have upheld all of their obligation.
Okay. One of the things that you were ordered to do in this lawsuit, you were ordered to turn over any text messages mentioning Sandy Hook, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so probably the very first request that the plaintiffs would have made is any documents that mention the phrase Sandy Hook or refer to the events of Sandy Hook that Jones possesses. This is Discovery 101. These are the kind of requests you're going to make.
And you didn't have any, right?
Not that we could find.
Now, that's a bit of a cop-out by Jones. He's saying, you know, might have had them, but we couldn't find them. that doesn't get out of his obligations because you have to do a reasonable search, and your lawyers have to make sure that you do a reasonable search to find responsive documents.
And you in fact told me in your testimony, sworn testimony before coming to this courtroom, you searched, right?
I did.
Okay. All right, so have any Sandy Hook related texts, and that of course you did search for them. It's all downhill from here for Jones.
Do you remember, were you here for Mr. Schroeder's testimony?
Yes.
Okay. You remember when Owen said, the company has learned from its mistakes about Sandy Hook? You remember that?
I did hear him say that.
You agree with that?
Yeah, we've certainly learned from our mistakes, got a lot better.
Okay. Mr. Jones, I'd like to show you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 130. You've got it upside down. That's text messages between you and Paul Watson, isn't it?
Yes.
And they mention Sandy Hook, don't they?
Yes.
Plaintiffs move 130 into evidence?
All right, so this is the kind of stuff you never see in movies. It's the meat and potatoes of litigation. It's kind of the boring stuff. You're laying foundation that this document is what it purports to be. This witness has verified it, and then you're moving it into evidence. But so far, seems pretty routine. We're about to find out why that is not the case, and it is a brilliant act of setting everyone up for a fall here.
Any objection?
The judge asks, any objections? No. Why would there be any objections? This is probably just one of the millions of documents that were turned over.
No objections.
Plaintiff's 130 is admitted.
No objection. So, the opposing counsel doesn't quite understand what this document is at this point, and so he waives any objection he might make to entering this particular document into evidence. Now Jones has been screwed.
Let's zoom in on the little article up in the corner, Mies. I'm going to walk over to this to you so we can kind of point it out. I know it's a little hard to read. You might be able to read it a little better on your screen. But this is a zoom of Mr. Watson has sent you a screenshot from Infowars.com, correct?
It appears to be.
Yeah, and it has an article here, right?
Yeah.
And it says, staged. Video shows hospital using dummies in ER for coronavirus footage.
I believe so.
Let's go to the first message from Mr. Watson. Read along with me, Mr. Jones. He says, this is a video.
Sorry, Steve, what's that?
No problem, take your time.
Man, Jones has a nasty cough. I guess he needs to take more of those supplements that he hawks on his channel.
You may not think it's a problem, but it's a real one.
Sure. Mr. Watson says, this is a video of a medical student training to intubate. Makes us look ridiculous, suggesting this means COVID is fake. Sandy Hook all over again. I read that correctly?
Yes.
Go to the next message. What'd you tell Mr. Watson?
I get it.
What has happened is this is something that has taken place after all of the Sandy Hook related communications. One of his employees says that we shouldn't publish this because it makes us look stupid and it's evocative of what happened during the Sandy Hook stuff. And Jones says, I get it. Everything Jones has said up until now is basically a lie. And it also shows that Jones and his attorneys never actually searched for responsive communications. So being caught in that particular lie and falsity is going to be much, much worse than if they had just turned over these documents in the first place. And that is why you comply with discovery. But let's see how the knife gets twisted.
Mr. Jones, it's true that this article is right now live on Infowars.com. I can pull it up, right?
I've never seen this text message. I guess you guys got Paul's. My phone didn't save them, so that's fine.
Your phone didn't save the second.
I told you guys I gave it to the lawyers who said they drained the phone. They didn't find that stuff. I don't know how my phone's.
Yeah, and now he's trying to throw his lawyers under the bus. That must not have been on my phone. I searched my phones and I turned stuff over to lawyers. If you didn't have this, it's because of the lawyers. That's not going to go as planned.
Who gave it to the lawyers? They were supposed to find it. So that's what testimony is?
No, I searched it as well. I don't know whose phone's taken. I mean, I turned the phone over and said, take the stuff off.
Can I have you look in the very bottom below the very bottom left corner? Is that your phone number?
Yes. So you did get my text messages. And it said you didn't. Nice trick.
Yes, Mr. Jones. Oh. Indeed.
The lawyer can't help himself because he knows what the next question is going to be. Alex Jones is trying to run this really fine line where Yes, he held stuff back. He got sanctioned so badly that he lost the liability phase of the trial. He thinks it's safe to say, well, I couldn't have possibly held it back if you have all of these text messages. But now the final phase of the trap is just about to be sprung.
You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
12 days ago. Your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about Sandy Hook. Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone, and then...
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
No,
Did you know this happened?
So normally there's some professional courtesy amongst lawyers where you're not going to just absolutely destroy them and throw them under the bus. Here, the lawyer is throwing Jones and his attorneys under the bus. I've never heard of something this inflammatory coming out against another opposing attorney during the course of a trial. The lawyer screwed up and sent an entire copy of Jones's phone to opposing counsel and then didn't claw it back. There are a million things that you can do to claw that back. The lawyer didn't do that. As a result, Alex Jones is on the stand just getting destroyed, being shown that everything he's talked about is a lie, that they tried to continue to hide information from the plaintiffs. And it's only because of this inadvertent disclosure that they finally got the documents that they had been entitled to this entire time. The jury is hearing all of this, and they're finding out how much of a liar and fabulist Alex Jones is, if they didn't know already, but also that there are shenanigans as well. And during the course of trial, not only the witness's credibility, but the lawyer's credibility is everything. And once you lose that credibility, you're probably screwed, because the jury will find ways to award people that they believe and punish people who they don't believe. Oh, and by the way, it's of course impossible to prep a witness like Alex Jones to be an effective advocate on the stand. But man, you gotta know just the basics of self-preservation. Don't tell the cross-examining attorney that this is his Perry Mason moment. It kind of signals to the jury that you're getting screwed, and you deserve to be screwed.
No, I didn't know this happened, but I mean, I told you, I gave him the phone over.
And you said in your deposition, you searched your phone. You said you pulled down the text, did the search function for Sandy Hook.
And I had several different phones with this number, but I did, yeah. Well, of course, I mean, that's why you got it.
There's all kinds of things that can go wrong in discovery, but the absolute easiest thing that you can do as a client or as a lawyer is to do a word search. And when the entire trial revolves around the phrase Sandy Hook, the absolute bare minimum, the necessary thing that you have to do is do a word search for Sandy Hook. And it's very clear that if they had done this absolute minimum fundamental thing, this text would have been found and it would have been turned over to the other side, but they clearly didn't do that.
No, Mr. Jones, that's not what happened.
My lawyer sent it to you, but I'm hiding it. Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Jones,
Please just answer questions. There's no question. Mr. Bankston also only asks questions.
Sure.
And a little bit of foreshadowing here. This is really underselling what happened between the two lawyers. That the opposing counsel, the defense attorney Raynal, sent the full copy of Jones's phone is just the tip of the iceberg. He actually sent way more than that to opposing counsel. Effectively, probably the entire case file from the defense to the plaintiffs. Just absolute malpractice. And we're gonna get to that because that is, if you can believe it, even juicier than this cross-examination is indicating.
Mr. Jones, in discovery, you were asked, do you have Sandy Hook text messages on your phone? And you said no, correct?
I mean, if I was mistaken, but you got the messages right there.
You know what perjury is, right? I just want to make sure you know before we go any further. You know what it is.
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm not a tech guy. I told you, I gave in my testimony the phone to the lawyers before, whatever, and so you got my phone, but we didn't give it to you.
And please remember, if you need to assert the Fifth Amendment, you can. I need to know that you can do that.
Ouch.
But you testified
under oath previously that you personally searched your phone for the phrase Sandy Hook and there were no messages? You said that under oath.
Yes.
And you lied when you said it.
No, I did not lie.
And here, the plaintiff's attorney is kind of gilding the lily a little bit. He has now absolutely established that Jones said he did a search for the word Sandy Hook, and that he previously testified that he did not have any of those communications, which we now know is absolutely not the case. Jones tries to backpedal by saying, look, I was mistaken, I had many phones, but I thought that was true at the time. But that seems extraordinarily unlikely under the cross-examination that we just saw. Because again, you're trying to impugn the witness's character and show that the witness is a liar. So, as Mr. Bankston has done here, you teed up with a prior inconsistent statement, and then show them either the evidence or the prior statement that is contradictory to what they previously testified to. So when I saw this clip, I was flabbergasted. How in the world did this happen? How did these documents get turned over after years of being hidden by Alex Jones and his attorneys? Well, luckily, the court held a full hearing on this matter to discuss. Jones's counsel finally moved for a mistrial the day after this testimony came out. Now, this hearing did not go well. So let's dive into this hearing because from a seasoned litigator, I think this is actually even more interesting than the original cross-examination. Jones's attorney is asking for a mistrial. Effectively, he's saying that the malfeasance from the other side is so terrible that we need to end this trial and do it over again. So how in the world did this happen? Well, let's hear it straight from Andino Reynal, the defense attorney's mouth.
A couple weeks before trial, a file transfer link was sent to the plaintiff's attorneys, specifically Mr. Bankston. That link linked up a lot of files that shouldn't have been connected to it.
Okay, so he's saying that a link was sent, probably a Dropbox link containing some documents that needed to be turned over to the plaintiffs. Apparently that link contained much, much more than was intended.
He said, I take it this was sent in error. And I responded to him and I said, it has been sent in error. Please disregard the link. I will work on preparing a new one.
Okay, so we hear from the defense attorney that the plaintiff's attorney did notify him that the production had been made and it was probably in error. That's super bad news for the defense attorney because if you've been notified and you don't do anything to claw it back, well, then you're probably screwed, which, spoiler, is what happens here.
I mean, we have a situation here which is akin to me mistakenly giving him the key to a room, and you know, he opens the door to the room, and instead of finding what he expected to find, he sees other doors. And he recognized that and told me, I don't think you meant to give me this key. And I said, please throw it away. Apparently, at some point thereafter, he said, you know what, I'd kind of really like to see what's behind those doors.
This is an interesting argument, and he's doing probably a good job of trying to paint the plaintiff's actions in the worst possible light, because that's what you're going to need to convince the judge to claw back all of these documents. He's saying that the plaintiff's attorney abused the inadvertent production, went rummaging around in all of these documents and found what was good for his case, and I guess didn't notify or destroy the documents once they were in his possession.
And that's why we're here seeking protection under the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure as well as the court's confidentiality order.
So here's the relief that the defense attorney is looking for. He's asking for a protective order to stop disseminating the documents, to claw them back, to assert privilege, and to destroy those documents that have been inadvertently turned over to the plaintiffs.
You're right. I'm just going to start unsending these one by one. You wrote unsend. You keep sending the word unsend, 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 unsend. Please do not read. I'm begging you.
Yeah, I hate to be put into this position by the conduct of plaintiff's counsel.
And of course, he is trying to blame plaintiff's attorney for this mess, not he himself, the one that inadvertently produced all this stuff.
And that's why, in addition to the request that they delete the information from their servers and delete the link, we're also requesting at this point, unfortunately, a mistrial.
And now we hear from the plaintiff's attorney and hear his side of it.
First, let me just go through the facts that they were said. This link of materials was sent to me. It was sent to Mr. Ogden. It was sent by Mr. Reynolds' legal assistant.
Ah, okay. So this link was sent not by defense attorney Andino Reynal, but actually by his legal assistant. I think that legal assistant has probably been fired. An easy mistake to make, but it's a mistake that you absolutely cannot make.
As I informed Mr. Reynal, we started downloading those materials. I was busy on trial prep. I told my paralegal, get these on our server, download everything there. All right. A little bit after he gets this stuff downloading, it's like, wait a second, this file that we now have on our server has clogged up our entire server. It's like 300 gigs. What's going on?
Okay, so the plaintiff's lawyer does what probably anyone would do. You get a link and you start downloading it. And then only once you've started downloading it do you realize that it's a huge production, 300 gigabytes. And you probably don't know what's in that link until you've downloaded everything. But it's so big that it's actually clogging his servers, which is hilarious. Well, not for Jones's attorneys, though.
Mr. Reynolds actually blocked quotes 130, 193, 32. So I know he knows how to read it. But he still hasn't done it. At the moment he is up here requesting a mistrial, is he hasn't followed the rule. Even today, late has not followed the rule. The rule requires that production is any privilege is waived.
Okay, this is easy to miss, but this is the most important part. The plaintiff's attorney is referring to briefing. He's saying that the defense's brief is citing a part of the Texas Rule of Civil Procedure about inadvertent disclosure. And he's saying, I know that opposing counsel, the defense attorney, is able to read because he is citing to the operative part of the Texas Rule of Civil Procedure, but it actually is very, very bad for him. And he talks about the actual standard. What happens when you make an inadvertent disclosure? Lawyers write these rules, so obviously they're going to make it so that if you inadvertently disclose something, there's a way to get it back.
Any privilege is waived if within 10 days, or if you order a shorter time, but within 10 days, the producing party of when they actually discover, so 10 days from the moment I told them, that they identify specifically the material or information produced and state the privilege asserted. I have not heard any privilege. I've never heard a privilege asserted over any document.
So the plaintiff's lawyer points out that he notified opposing counsel of the disclosure. Opposing counsel didn't do anything. He didn't supplement his production. He never asserted privilege. That means all of these documents, all 300 gigabytes of documents, are fair game. And the plaintiff's lawyer is probably right.
But even more important than that is all of the stuff in there. He cannot now come into court and claim 2.3 gigabytes of phone material, blanket designation of confidentiality. The protective order prohibits that. You must identify specifically the documents that are. And things like Mr. Jones and his intimate messages with Roger Stone are not confidential.
And then the plaintiff's lawyer explains that the defense not only failed to uphold their obligations under 193.3, but they didn't comply with the court's protective order, that the court can put in additional rules that govern the disclosure of information. They didn't follow that. They didn't supplement their production, so even the email that says, please disregard that link, I'll send you another link. He didn't even follow through with that. And oh, by the way, the vast majority of these documents are not privileged and should have been disclosed years and years ago.
So I don't think that you have complied with the protective order. I will let you do so now. If there are documents and you would like to mark them as confidential, and we can go through the process and I can review them and make a decision, but I'm not going to seal the entire quantity of information without knowing what's in it when the rules weren't followed properly.
It's a tremendous amount of information, Your Honor.
I know. The problem is it probably should have been disclosed a year ago or longer, and then there would have been plenty of time to look through all of it.
And in the end, the judge doesn't seal these documents. She allows the defense to try to assert privilege. She recognizes that the vast majority of these documents are not privileged and should have been turned over. And then, of course, the defense's prior discovery abuses come back to bite them again, because how in the world are they going to actually assert privilege or review 300 gigabytes worth of files in a couple of days while at trial? But the judge doesn't have any sympathy. She says that this stuff should have been turned over, and the reason that they're in this position is because of their own malfeasance. And the lesson here that clients learn time and time again is don't hold back discovery, don't engage in discovery abuses, or stuff like this is going to happen. Oh, and one more thing. At the end of the trial, The plaintiff's lawyer lets the judge and opposing counsel know that law enforcement is requesting these documents. And not only law enforcement, but in particular, the January 6th committee is very interested in these documents, and he's going to turn them over to that committee. So it looks like that is just the beginning of Alex Jones's legal worries. And you'll be able to read all about Alex Jones's future civil and criminal legal issues in today's sponsor, Morning Brew, because that's my favorite way to catch up with pop culture and the news. I've actually been subscribed to Morning Brew for forever. It's one of my absolute favorite newsletters, and I'm thrilled to tell you why. Because Morning Brew, if you didn't already know, is a free daily newsletter delivered Monday through Sunday. It gets you up to speed on business, finance, tech, and the law in just 5 minutes. And it provides a fantastic quick survey of the most important issues while being witty, irreverent, and informative. And did I mention it's completely free? This week I learned all about Brittany Griner's 9-year sentence in Russia, zombie pigs who were brought back to life, no, that's not about Alex Jones, and Nancy Pelosi landing in Taiwan. It's basically exactly the mix of news that I'm actually interested in, and it's all the stuff that I didn't even know that I wanted to know about. And it's all written in a hilarious style. Morning Brew is one of the few emails that I actually open every single day. So, Legal Eagles, this one is a complete no-brainer. Morning Brew is completely free and it takes less than 15 seconds to subscribe. Just click on the link that's on screen right now or in the description.
Yeah. Really? Okay. I'll be right back.
Outbreaker.
We are tracking new breaking news about Donald Trump's unprecedented legal problems. Today, August 10th, 2022, a former United States president pleaded the Fifth, raising the topic of his own criminal culpability in a legal proceeding. Donald Trump spending 6 hours dodging questions at a deposition. You could see him leaving there in New York today. He stated that he pled the Fifth under the advice of counsel declining to answer the questions. This striking legal development, which we will get into, comes just 2 days after August 8th, 2022, when the FBI searched a former president's home. Both developments show the depths of Donald Trump's legal problems. Neither means that he is, in a legal sense, guilty of anything, to be precise. Both mean that the concerns about Donald Trump's guilt, about lawbreaking, about criminal evidence, and criminal activity stretch from the highest levels of the DOJ to a separate New York probe to inside Donald Trump's mind. Only he can make the decision that he made today. And let me tell it to you in plain English. It's a right he can exercise, but he made the decision, Donald Trump did, that he faces a higher risk by testifying truthfully in the New York probe, which he chose not to do, than by pleading the Fifth, which he chose to do. It is a legal but a controversial move, which he has publicly derided for years. Donald Trump pleading the Fifth in this state probe, which is completely separate from that federal probe, which led the FBI agents to search his home, an unprecedented event that has continued to send shockwaves across the nation this week. And yet it was Donald Trump himself trying to link these two separate legal events and that angry statement that he issued today as he tried to explain why he's suddenly pleading the Fifth. Meanwhile, his lawyer recounting the details of Monday's search.
Well, I mean, it looks like a scene from a movie. You know, the FBI rolls up, they've got their black SUVs, and they unload and kind of disperse. I arrived about 10:30. The FBI was already there, had already started their search. They stayed until probably about 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. They had a team of a couple dozen agents that dispersed on the property and did what the FBI does. They were looking for both classified information that they think should not have been removed from the White House, as well as presidential records.
It may have looked like a movie, but this ain't a movie, dog. This is real life. Other reports counted 30 to 40 FBI agents dressed largely in plain clothes with over 10 FBI vehicles going in and out of the property. This is a lot of pressure hitting Donald Trump all at once this week. Now, why now? I can actually tell you. The short answer is Donald Trump has been trying to fight, defy, and run out the clock on this slew of legal problems, ranging from evidence disputes to testimony to civil investigations to the possible criminal probes that could lead to people's indictments. Now, he has impacted the timeline with that defiant approach. But as he has learned, I should say, as he has learned not once, but twice this week, he does not control that timeline. So we don't know the entire path to Monday's unprecedented search, but we do know it came after months of wrangling that ended with the DOJ and a federal judge convinced that Trump was both likely holding illegal material and likely not honest or trustworthy about returning it. That is why that operation can really be accurately described as a court-authorized search, which it was, or a court-authorized raid, which in a very real sense it was. Bottom line, Trump was resisting to the point that in our system of government, which has independent oversight, a court authorized men with guns to go get alleged criminal evidence out of Donald Trump's house that he wouldn't provide after many, many past legal commands. So yes, in a very real sense, if the people with guns overseen by the judges have to come in, well, you're past just a request or what we might call colloquially just a search. There's a similar pattern in today's New York case. It would honestly, I'm just going to tell you, because I try to keep it real, it would take more time than it's worth to recount it all for you right now. But in the Times today, they actually have a partial summary of how Trump only got to sit down today, to this point, after months of legal wrangling. Back to January, he was fighting the subpoena. He lost. The judge ordered the Trumps to testify, a ruling that another court, an appellate court, upheld. Then the judge held Trump in contempt of court, finding he had failed to comply with the terms of the James subpoena. The Times summing it up, quote, "It was an embarrassing 2-week episode that compelled Trump to pay a $110,000 penalty until he finally came in for today's deposition." That was just to get Trump to show up today. And that pressure is what then resulted in Donald Trump taking the rare step of raising the prospect that telling the truth about his actions under oath could get him in criminal trouble or indicted. It is a right every person is afforded in America, but one that no former president has ever taken. Let's get into it. We have some special guests. Asha Rangappa is a lawyer, a former FBI special agent in the Counterintel Division, and also a Yale lecturer. And Michael Steele is just someone we like. No, I'm kidding. He has credentials, too. He ran the RNC. He's an MSNBC political analyst, a former lieutenant governor, and a good sport. Welcome to both of you. Asha, how about this bad legal week for Donald Trump? And as mentioned, how he doesn't control the timeline, but his approach, his delays, his defiance did delay, push, and sort of draw out certain things that do seem to be coming to a head.
Yes, and I think you did a really good job of laying out how he employs that strategy in a number of contexts. Look, I mean, you know, today was D-Day for his deposition. I think that given his choices, he actually made the correct choice. You know, listen, he has 3 choices in front of him, right? He can tell the truth, which could incriminate himself. And in this situation, there's a parallel criminal case in the New York DA's office that has been stalled, and any kind of incriminating evidence he provides could jumpstart that. So that's not a great option. He could lie, which could then start a whole new investigation into a whole new crime of perjury, or he can take the 5th. And in a civil case, this means that if this ends up in a lawsuit that goes before a jury, his Fifth Amendment assertions, the jury can draw adverse inferences from it. The burden of proof is lower in a civil case. It's a preponderance of the evidence. But ultimately,
I'm only going to slow you down and then hand you the mic back, because we just got a lot of law. You're saying that while he has the right to plead the 5th in a criminal probe, it is still okay in a civil case to treat it as a bad thing, as a kind of a guilty thing, if someone pleads the 5th because it's not being used to incarcerate them.
That's right. In a criminal case, a jury cannot draw inferences of guilt from someone asserting their Fifth Amendment right. But in a civil case, a jury can draw an adverse inference, and there's a lower standard of proof. It's a preponderance of the evidence. And in a civil case, though, what Trump is facing are potential financial penalties. We've seen this already when New York dissolved his charitable foundation, which he was misusing funds, and sent his kids to remedial training on how to be fiduciaries. But, you know, he doesn't like losing money, but I suspect that he's more willing to lose money than go to jail. And I think that that's why he made the choice that he did today.
Yeah, and Michael, more broadly, this is someone who is known as a talker, who's loud, voluble, always wants to tell his own story, does that in his various forms, people know. in two very real ways this week, he has gone quiet. He doesn't want to talk under oath, which is a tell. As I say, it is his right, but it is a tell.
Well, there is some very important news tonight on my email. I just got an email from Donald Trump. It's from Donald J. Trump. It says it is from the official email account of Donald Trump. It says, Lawrence, directed to me, Mar-a-Lago was raided. In fact, take a look at this email. We can put it up on the screen for you. We just got it. It says Mar-a-Lago was raided. The radical left is corrupt. We must return the power to the people. Please rush in a donation immediately to publicly stand with me against this never-ending witch hunt. And it has my name there. It even suggests a donation. He thinks I'm good for $45. That's what his email list managers tell him. And there's a deadline. Deadline for my contribution of $45 is immediately. Immediately. I gotta drop everything and contribute. I gotta say, I've received a bunch of these Trump fundraising emails over the years at one of my many email addresses. That is the shortest one. That is the shortest, simplest one. My house got raided, send me money. And once again, Donald Trump makes American political history, presidential history, with that email. An email about, my house got raided by the FBI, so please give me a political contribution. No one's ever done that before. That is pure Donald Trump. Well, nothing happened today. Donald Trump broke the news last night about the FBI raid on his Florida home in the desperate hope that it would provoke coast-to-coast outrage by Trump supporters, a national uprising by Trump supporters, but nothing happened. There was no uprising. On social media last night, one empty-headed Trump supporter got a lot of attention with a tweet to his 1.9 million followers on Twitter saying, "Tomorrow is war, sleep well." They are still sleeping. The 1.9 million Twitter followers who may have seen that tweet slept very, very well, and none of them, not one of them, went to war today, including the guy who wrote the tweet. Outside Donald Trump's home in Florida, there were more members of the news media today than Trump supporters. A couple of dozen Trump supporters showed up throughout the course of the day. None of them were ready for war, but they did enjoy talking on TV.
Yeah, well, we came out to support Trump. I mean, we think it's awful what happened yesterday. We think it's abuse of power.
That guy's not going to war for Donald Trump. Justin's not going to war for Donald Trump. Hold a flag for a while. That's about it. The Washington Post interviewed Trump supporters outside of Mar-a-Lago today, and they found one woman who traveled all of 5 miles from her home to wave an American flag near Donald Trump's home. Remember now, here is some numerical perspective to what you're seeing on that little bridge near Mar-a-Lago. There are 5.6 million Trump voters just in the state of Florida. Millions of them live within an hour's drive of Mar-a-Lago. And all of them, virtually all of them, stayed home today. Did nothing. 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida did absolutely nothing after Donald Trump's home was searched by FBI agents in plain clothes yesterday who obtained the search warrant from a Florida federal judge. America was not torn apart by that search warrant, as right-wing social media would want you to believe, and as the Fox propaganda channel would want you to believe. There is no outrage. There is no uprising. If you take the TV cameras away, there will be 0 Trump supporters outside of Mar-a-Lago. 74 million Trump voters today did absolutely nothing in response to the FBI search of Donald Trump's home. 74 million Trump voters in this country, and they did nothing. Social media and the news media will continue to distort the public reaction to the federal investigation of Donald Trump by amplifying wildly tweets from people who don't mean a single word they say, and by sticking microphones and cameras in the faces of the microscopically tiny group of individuals who have raced to the TV news cameras in Mar-a-Lago. And the news media will steadfastly ignore the 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida who are staying home and doing nothing, and the 74 million Trump voters in this country who are staying home and doing nothing about the raid on Donald Trump's home. Donald Trump, who measures his very self-worth by the size of his crowds, has to be crushed by the, in effect, zero turnout of a crowd anywhere. A crowd in public support of him. That is not a crowd that those TV cameras are aiming at down at Mar-a-Lago. There is plenty of room between each one of those individuals who has traveled apparently a very short distance to be there. No crowd at all. Zero crowd. Nowhere in America is there a crowd today or tonight for Donald Trump. Donald Trump appears to have the support of people like the leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. But that is obviously just political posturing that, when quoted by the news media, simply turns the news media into a conduit of Republican lies. But those Republicans, those Republican office holders do enjoy talking on TV about their support for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is probably, can't prove this, there's no journalistic proof of this, but he's probably as terrified tonight as anyone else whose home has ever been searched by, as Donald Trump described it, a large group of FBI agents. But what American journalism produces is a quote from an unnamed aide to Donald Trump that Donald Trump believes he will be politically helped by the FBI raid. Now, that is the news media quoting an unnamed liar about a known liar. Everyone who works for Donald Trump lies. So every time a Trump aide, named or unnamed, is quoted, a liar is being quoted by the news media. And when that Trump aide is telling you what Donald Trump thinks, that is a liar telling you what a liar thinks. It has zero journalistic value. The best approach to this story of the Trump search warrant is to ignore the political bombast of the Kevin McCarthys and absolutely ignore the empty threats and boasts of social media. Social media is a mirage to begin with, but right-wing social media, that is a complete nuthouse of madness and emptiness. Ignore all of that and notice that 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida have not done a single thing because of the FBI search of Donald Trump's home. None of them changed their schedules today. And 74 million Trump supporters nationwide, including the guy on Twitter who said war was going to start today, have done absolutely nothing. The war guy himself did absolutely nothing today. But he did get a massive amount of attention to his tweet on television today. And virtually all of that attention took his said war was going to start today, have done absolutely nothing. The war guy himself did absolutely nothing today. But he did get a massive amount of attention to his tweet on television today. And virtually all of that attention took his said war was going to start today, have done absolutely